once her camera time. She's also feeding the same way as that other cow was. She's got some round leaf teak by the looks of things, and feeding on the bark, twisting the branch in her mouth to get the bark off of it, biting the juices out of the bark and the branch itself. Small ambient globe now, Triple M, Simbambili Cutline Junction. From bark to grasses in 2 mouthfuls. It's interesting seeing the variety of plants that they eat. When you understand the digestive system of an elephant, where they're not digesting very much of it. Birds catching up. I can see a lot more just on the verge of the road. But it's also, the sun is already getting hot. It's one of those days when it started off very cool, but once the sun has risen, it's got a little bit of a fierceness to it, and it's convenient for them to be feeding in this kind of vegetation with the amount of shade that they've got, especially for the youngsters. Very distinct sound, the sound of elephant flapping their ears, and they can use that sound to intimidate sometimes too, make it louder, like a clap, slapping their sides with their ears. Madam Elephant. Morning, Anna. Anna's in New Jersey, wondering if it becomes hard for them to find food when in the dry season, when our winter dry season, when things get very dry and the leaves are gone off the trees. I wouldn't say it gets harder. I would say what happens is that they change their diet somewhat. They learn where the best places are to get better nutrients or better parts of the trees, or they will even maybe feed on some trees that they might not feed on now, because there are far more palatable things to be eating now rather than maybe some of the more bitter things later on in the year. There's a female with a very small calf across the road, but I don't want to go anywhere now. The whole herd is crossing over, because she's right next to us. She's eating a bit of acacia now. Trying to pull the leaves. It's hardly a morsel for an elephant, stripping a few leaves off of an acacia branch. Use the trunk and the tusk and leverage. As I was mentioning earlier, you have the trees storing a lot of their moisture and nutrients in their roots. You'll find that in the winter and the dry season you'll see elephants digging up root tubers. A lot of the things that are saving that moisture, saving those nutrients, even the grasses, because the grasses get dry but they don't die off completely. Thank you, madam. That's what you're thinking, isn't it? In the summer months when they're eating grasses, they'll pluck the grasses and they'll bite off all of the leaves and let the roots drop off to the ground. And in the winter months you'll find somewhat the opposite when the dry season comes along, because the grass heads themselves become very, very dry, almost unpalatable, becomes very, very rough. But there's nothing in them, there's no nutrients. The zebra can eat them, the zebra just bulk up with it, but the elephant wouldn't really do them any good. So in the dry season you'll find them picking grasses and slapping off all the sand of the roots, slapping the sand off of all the roots, and then eating the roots and letting the leaf heads of the grass fall away. Stripping more bark perhaps because of the moisture and nutrient content of the bark of certain trees. They might, where they can, occupy the riparian habitats a little bit more, the riverine areas where there are greener trees, lusher vegetation. Little one's coming by to see if mom left anything that it can pick up. Somewhat downward pointing tusks for that little thing, like two little fangs. That's very distinct. Already getting a little bit rounded, probably from putting its face in the ground, in the mud. Let's go forward, let's meet up with another mother and child. Oops. Morning, Mum. Morning, Brenda. Brenda wants to know if elephants ever wander towards the mountains that we see in the west, or if they ever wander into civilized towns. Here, no, Brenda. Here, the other elephant that has broken out of the reserve gets put back into the reserve. They either break the fence and they chase it back in. Occasionally, outside the Timbavati, elephant have broken out, but then they also break back in as soon as they find that they can't really deal with the way humans behave on the outside, with the amount of traffic and noise, I suppose. There are parts of Africa where they do wander into towns. I mean, one of the most famous is up in northern Botswana, the town of Kasane up in northern Botswana on the Chobe River. Often elephants have been in town in Chobe. Seems we have somebody that I think is who we saw earlier. I'm not going to go forward because we're going to have vehicles just behind us or behind. More coming out of the bush. Speaking of elephants and mountains, quite strangely, there are elephant carcasses very, very high up on Kilimanjaro, Mount Kenya. Mount Kenya is a smaller version of Kilimanjaro in a way, although in terms of climbing, it's truly a mountaineer's mountain. Kilimanjaro is a hiker's mountain. And if you can deal with the altitude and the cold, you could probably climb Kili, but you really need to be a mountain climber to tackle Mount Kenya. I think something like 17,000 feet has been the highest elephant carcass found on any of these mountains. There's a famous elephant carcass on was it 14,000? I think maybe 14,000. 17,000 sounds a little bit higher. There's a famous elephant carcass on Mount Kenya as well, very, very high up on the mountain, in an almost impossible place. For the most part, especially here in South Africa, if there are elephants in a national park or a reserve, then legislation has it that that national park or reserve has to have elephant-proof fencing to stop elephants from getting out and having that elephant-human conflict. And the national parks in South Africa, up until, well, the last few years, was always a very a pretty well-run organization or governmental institution, for want of a better phrase, in that no expenses were spared in protecting the national parks. Now, other parts of Africa where you haven't had that kind of revenue put into national parks, but at least you've got national parks declared, you will find that there are villages, populations, people around the edges of the park that are constantly in conflict with wildlife, and especially elephants, because the very remoteness of the place means that the government doesn't really care about the villages that are on the periphery of society. And so you find that there's no infrastructure, subsistence farming, and you'll find that that's where the greatest conflict lies with local people and elephants raiding their crops. She's getting into some big stuff. Let's see if we can find another one to look at, or if this young lad has moved on. Oops. Still there. Right behind the elephant. So, for the umpteenth time, back to this old girl. Giving us a very broad idea of the feeding habits of elephants. Sorry, ma'am. Morning, Dodie, in Vancouver Island. I'm going to come back. I think she wants to come through here. So she's backing off now. I'm just going to wait for her. Dodie asking if I've heard of the lodge in Africa where elephants walk through the main lodge buildings. Yes, I have. It's somewhere in Zambia, if I'm not mistaken. Because the lodge was built on a particular pathway that elephants use seasonally. And the elephants, they built the lodge, the roof. They left the sides open because it's the reception area. It's the way of lodges, I suppose. And there was film and footage of photographs of these elephants that walk through the reception area. Quite a famous lodge now because of it. I've never been there. Would love to live there. But I've had my fair share of elephants in camps. I've had many opportunities of living where I've managed camps in other parts of Africa and been lucky enough to witness or have elephants living in camp with us 24 hours a day. I've had to get elephants out of the swimming pool area. I've had to move them away from the kitchen or stop them from upsetting the dining room patrons. Joseph, my friend Joseph. I'm sure he told his elephant friends a good few stories. Where'd she go now? I think we should move on because, well, a glimpse of a trunk and a glimpse of a tusk. And night morning. Oh yeah, one more there, one or two full. So I'm heading away from these alleys now. We're going to head back into Juma and I'm going to see you in a little while. We're going to see what Brent's up to, what he's been doing for the last few minutes, and I'll see you shortly. Don't go anywhere. See you later. Welcome back, guys. Unfortunately, we haven't really got good fresh tracks to follow this morning, but what we found here is a Hammerkop, and he's busy killing a platana, which is a species of frog. Oh, and there it went. Down in one go. So they got quite sharp claws. That's why he was taking his time while attacking it. Very interesting. Very interesting. You might go for another one. So as I was saying, when we were trying to fix Wendy the other night, after drive, I did a test to see where if Wendy got signal everywhere, and I actually drove down this road towards Philemon's Dip, and this was quite full of water a couple of weeks ago, and slowly it's been drying up. And that night I actually saw about 12 of those platana frogs, which are almost one of the few frog species that's almost completely spends 90% of its life in water if it can. Like 12 of them hopping down the road towards Gari Dam. Oh, let's see if you can find another one.
hiding in the mud, so he's just checking in the mud where they could be. Oh, saw something there. So a lot of your waders and water birds love when pans are drying up. Oh, there we go. He's got a big one. Now they've got very sharp claws. That's why we'll watch him. He'll peck it quite a lot. He's gone behind the stick. Oh. He'll peck at it a lot before eating it. And that's to ensure it doesn't hurt him on the way down with those sharp claws. Boom. See, he's trying to make sure that the frog has almost stopped moving before he eats it, just to ensure those claws don't damage its throat. See, leaves it, and then every time it moves, pecks again. You can actually see a little bit of blood on the frog there every now and then. I think it's still moving. Scratch. So it's all the movement of the frog then. Pecking again. Well, that looks like it's almost time for eating. If you ever pick up those frogs, I mean, those claws are incredibly sharp. And does that look like he's got an injury to his right leg? Maybe. Let me just have a closer look. Swollen at the top there. Let me just take a close-up picture and then I'll have a close look. It does look like it's got some form of injury on that leg. There's quite a large swelling at the top side of the leg, and it does seem to be favouring the left leg, but still it seems to use the right leg for scratching and whatnot. But look, if anything, it's an old injury and it's just set in that position. It doesn't look like he's in discomfort. Oh, I think it's nearly time to eat. No, they're still moving, that frog. Incredibly tough amphibian platanas. can still see a little bit of movement when it puts the frog down, and it doesn't want to take any chances. The reason it keeps repeatedly is that they actually do have quite a hard skull. So they're not the easiest frog to kill. They're quite robust. Oh, we got a bit of flesh out in that last one. Not convinced he's dead enough. There we go. I think it's dinner time now. No, not quite. We're just trying to get a better grip on them to eat. Oh, the frog's still moving. Looks like it's got him in a good position. Yeah, definitely hopping along there. I think the thing's dead, Mr. Hammerkop. I can't see any movement. And gone. 2 kills in it in the space of minutes. Clean the mud out of its beak. Have a little drink. They're definitely favouring the left leg. The right leg looks like it's got an old injury. But as you can see, definitely not affecting its hunting prowess. Two big frogs like that, it's quite a nice meal for a Hammerkop. Wait a minute or two, see if it starts looking for more. Yeah, probing the mud again. Cut line. I think they're probably crossed in the golfer's hook. Well, it is going to be another scorcher today. It started off a little bit cool. I was even wearing my jersey this morning, but the temperature has risen so quickly this morning. I think we'll be okay. So it almost feels like it's sitting on your shoulders.
The buffalo comes to fly. Must have popped out this morning. Glorious. Let's go see these buffalo. Coming to bathe, coming to wallow for the day. Surprisingly, barely any oxpeckers. One juvenile oxpecker on one buffalo, another oxpecker there, come a couple now. Pay a lot closer attention to the oxpeckers now that I've seen that there are yellow-billed around. Okay, we're gonna have to start moving. We're inundated with fire. Very, very hot day gonna be setting in soon. It's already well into the 30s at the moment. But sitting close to buffalo is not very comfortable at the moment with this heat. Because we are in their cloud of flies. Those of you that are still awake, whether it's Sunday morning or Sunday night, thanks for staying with us. We are going to be doing our fireside chat tonight, just to remind you, after our PM drive. Fireside chat again, being Sunday and all. And unless I find something really interesting, I'm going to hand you back to Brent to say goodbye.
Stop for a second.
Stop for a sec. Something. Maybe we need better light on the
Yeah, I need a light on the side.
Okay, like that. Or which side?
Yeah, that'll be good. Definitely.
See if people can guess who that is. Which villain is this?
Super villain Sunday. Well, anyway, from Brian, Thumb, and myself, and of course, we'll see you again this afternoon. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for being part of our drive this morning. I love you lots. See you this afternoon. Back to Brent.
For the last few minutes, VM and I have been chasing a bird that I think is possibly a very, very rare bird for this area, and hasn't never been recorded in this area. Not the magpie. We're just trying to see it. It just moved now. It looks like a Eurasian hoopoo. So not the normal African hoopoo. Sure, it flew in here somewhere. We're just going to keep a close look. If we look at the book, there's the African hoopoo. Let me just take my hat off there. There we go. The African hoopoo there. So it's got a much darker color. This is the Eurasian hoopoo. Also, when it flew, it's got these sort of zebra stripes in the wings, whereas the African hoopoo's got sort of much bigger, whiter spots. And it raises its crest quite often. While we've been watching this one, it hasn't raised its crest once. Just need to have a quick look at my photos to see if there's that slight pink in the bill. That could be a dead giveaway. But if that is, that's incredibly exciting for this area. Let me just see if I can. Oh, so difficult. It does look like the bill's slightly lighter there. So we're just looking at my camera now, trying to... It does look like it's pinkish. It is. There is a lighter patch which the African doesn't have. Now, unfortunately, with these, I can't just immediately claim that now this is probably one of the first times the species has ever been recorded in South Africa. I have to now submit these photos through to the rare bird guys, and then they can argue over it for a while before they decide. But I think I'm pretty confident that it's an Eurasian hoopoo rather than a normal African hoopoo. Just these colorings on the wing are so distinct in comparison, which is really exciting. I mean, it's very seldom like I get to see a new bird species, and especially one like this. I just want to check the flight. I'm trying to get it in flight because that's probably the easiest way to tell, but it's so difficult while trying to drive, move the car. So I want to see if there's white just on the edge of the primaries, because the African, that's from underneath. That's not going to help us. Oh, that's not a very good flying shot, it is. It's just a blur in the sky. Might be here. I just hopped off one branch. Go away, flies. Oh, I have to. I don't know, it's just so difficult. That photo you don't really see, maybe. That's just, oh, this could be very exciting. It definitely has such different markings. So I'm actually going to have to pop that off almost as soon as we get back to sort of the Rare Birding Commission and sightings. I'm confident enough that it might be a new species for the area, so I wouldn't send one in that I was sort of 50% sure on. But anyway, guys, thanks very much for joining us on Drive. Unfortunately, we weren't that lucky with the spotted cats, or the cats in general, and the lions still seem to elude us. But it's been wonderful having you with us, and we look forward to you joining us this afternoon. So from Veer, myself, and Alex and FC, it's been a great morning and really exciting. If this is a new species, I will keep you updated on what's going on with that. But have a wonderful day or evening wherever you are in the world, and we will see you in a few hours for the next live safari. Cheers.